Current temperature 93.5, 1590 WAKR. We're 52 degrees, and we're going to film school right now. We're going to talk all about our film school on the road tomorrow in a couple of moments. But let's bring in Joe Fortunato, film study professor, and we're going to a mega hit from the 1970s. Joe, thanks for joining us again this morning on the show, and let's talk about network.
Good morning, Ray. Good morning, everybody. And yes, today we're going to, I feel like I say this a lot, but I certainly mean it today, talk about one of my favorite films, Network from 1976. Released November 27th, 1976, directed by Sidney Lumet and written by the great Paddy Chayefsky. It won 4 Oscars, one for Peter Finch, Faye Dunaway, Beatrice Straight, and another for writing. It was nominated for 6 other Oscars, so it was a big player in that year's Oscar race. It was voted the 64th greatest film of all time on the AFI list. The famous line, one of the most iconic lines in movie history, I'm as mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore, was voted the number 19th movie quote by the AFI list. And a couple of interesting things about the Oscar races there. Peter Finch died, unfortunately, before the Academy Awards took place. When he was nominated for Best Actor, he won, making him the first performer ever to receive a posthumous award at the Oscars. That happened again, unfortunately, to Heath Ledger for The Dark Knight a number of years later. He was the first where that ever happened. And Beatrice Straight, who won Supporting Actress, was only on screen for 5 minutes, and that's the briefest performance ever to win an Oscar. So a couple of sort of odd or dubious Oscar trivia there. Speaking of Oscars, Sidney Lumet was actually openly admitting that he was pretty furious to have his picture lose to Rocky that year for Best Picture. I love Rocky, too, so I guess that's a toss-up, but that's a tough race there. So all in all, there's 5 Oscar winners in the film. Peter Finch, William Holden, Faye Dunaway, Beatrice Straight, Robert Duvall, and Ned Beatty, who was a nominee for that film as well. And it's it's one of those films that's as prescient today. In fact, I've heard tell that students who watch it today don't look at it as a satire. They think, well, this is just what TV is like. But Paddy Chayefsky was really prescient in how he predicted our media to go in the future, which we're living in now.
It was interesting that the movie is really built on ratings, right? They go from the high to the low to the high, and then the emotions of the ratings and the need for ratings. And, it was one of those really first developments to look at the news/TV news industry in that fashion.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, later on, we'd have movies like broadcast news and things like that. And, of course, there were media films earlier, His Girl Friday, about the newspapers and stuff like that. So it wasn't a first exactly, but it certainly was one that really talked about the television networks that we were living in at that time. And Peter Finch was so desperate to win that role of Howard Beale that he even offered to pay his own airfare to New York and do a screen test. Sidney Lumet was concerned that Finch had an Australian accent, but he won the part after he sent Lumet a recording of himself reading the New York Times in a perfect American accent. So he becomes the great Howard Beale. Interestingly enough, Walter Cronkite and John Chancellor, 2 real newsmen, were approached to be Howard Beale, and neither was interested. Probably a good thing. I don't know about messing with their credibility. Some other casting. Paddy Chayefsky, the writer, wanted Henry Fonda, James Stewart, Paul Newman, Cary Grant, all to be Howard Beale. Henry Fonda turned it down, saying it was too hysterical. Jim Stewart turned it down because he didn't like the strong language. Gene Hackman also turned the role down. So there was a big list of who's who in Hollywood that actually turned the role down. And for the Faye Dunaway role, they thought of Candice Bergen, Ellen Bernstein, Natalie Wood, Jane Fonda, Marsha Mason. So a number of luminous actors and stars could have been playing those roles.
With us is Joe Fortunato Film School, the movie Network, 1976. Joe, to wrap up Network, and then we're going to talk about tomorrow, what do you like best about this film? You mentioned it's one of your all-time favorites. What's the part that you love the best about this movie?
Well, as a former screenwriter and a Writers Guild member myself, I just marvel at the screenplay. And even Faye Dunaway herself later said, this is the only film ever that you didn't want to touch the script because, she quotes, it was written almost like in verse. And Patty Chayefsky, a great screenwriter, actually, I was talking about Oscar trivia there. This is his third Oscar, and he's the only person to ever win 3 writing Oscars by himself. There's a few others that did it with a co-writer. So I really would have to say the script. And the Howard Beale mad as hell scene is so iconic. That one scene alone doesn't a movie make, but if ever there was one, that might be it.
Joe Fortunato with us, film study professor, Film School Fridays here on WAKR at this time. Now, tomorrow we're going on the road at Jilly's Music Room. The doors open up at 11 o'clock. The brunch is at 12 o'clock noon. The movie portion of this is absolutely free, so we're going to have some fun. And we're going to go to film school. It's a little bit different that we do here on Fridays. This is kind of a digested version of it, Joe. Talk about it. We're going to do Raiders of the Lost Ark tomorrow.
Exactly, and I'm so excited to bring Fortunato Film School back live to the Akron area. And what happens when I do this live, it's a full program. So we will start with you and I talking a little bit about the movie, kind of doing a little bit like we do here on the radio with a little bit of history of the film. And then we'll screen the film together, and I'll do live commentary, and I'll pause it on certain occasions, point out some things, tell some trivia, tell some production stories, point out some movie mistakes. That's always a fun thing that people like to see. And we'll analyze the film live together, and then after that's over, we'll discuss it and have a sort of like a book club for film and a Q&A and whatever you want to talk about. So it's a full program. It's fun. It's educational. And I'm really excited about it. And like you said, the doors open for brunch at Jilly's at 11 a.m., and the movie will start at 12. Their walk-ins are welcome if there's seats available, but if you really want to guarantee a spot, and we'd love to have you down there, you can get tickets in advance. Even if you're just going to the free movie, you can get a ticket. And those are available if you search Fortunato Film School on Facebook or on Eventbrite, or go to Jilly's website. All of those will link to the purchase of tickets on the Eventbrite page.
Yeah, and we're hoping to do more and more of this. So we hope to see you folks down there tomorrow. And boy, way to kick it off with Raiders of the Lost Ark, still regarded as one of the best movies at all time. And talking to Joe about this movie, I can't wait for him to present it to you. We're looking forward to seeing you at Jilly's tomorrow. And as Joe mentioned, doors open up at 11 o'clock. We will start the movie right at 12 o'clock noon. Joe, my friend, thanks for joining me again this morning. Network, that might tease you a little bit for a weekend. Go back and stream that baby. It was a great movie from the 70s. And Joe, I'll connect with you tomorrow morning, okay?